There are so many small interactions on the web that most people take for granted. After all, great design doesn't shout in your face. It feels very natural, intuitive, and subtle. That said, there's a lot of trial and error that goes into making interactions feel that way. Let's try to achieve that on this page, the product details page, starting with the image carousel. So I'm just going through and thinking about this in real time. I haven't really planned this out yet because I want to show you guys kind of how my brain works as I'm going through making this feel intuitive. So, okay, we have this main image here, which is the selected image, and we have these images down here, which you can toggle through. So really quickly, I'm going to change these images, even if it's not images of the same chairs, just so that we can test out this interaction and make sure it's really like feeling right. I don't think we're going to be able to get an idea if it's the same exact image over and over. So now we have different images here. The first one, of course, is selected. So the first thing that I'm noticing is that these images are going left to right on here. So that means that whenever I click on the next one or like the next button, I'm gonna want the image to come from the side that it's on in this little list, right? We kind of want this to be just a larger version of this. So what I'm first going to do is drag this out and make a copy of it. And we might actually make this a component with several different states. Okay, so before we do that though, let's copy and paste. And like I said, let's make this into like a bigger version of this carousel. So I'm going to frame these together, hit auto layout, and we're going to do them vertically instead. And then we want to hug the contents height-wise. Okay, so then I don't think we really need this on there. I think we just want for this to be sort of like an overlay. So we might have to delete that and put it back over the top later. So let's deal with that in a bit. So let's change this image to the same image that we picked for the previews, like the little thumbnails, which was this. Then I'm just going to do the same thing for the rest of these. Now, what I'm going to do is make this a component. We'll call this carousel. Okay. And then what I want to do is actually clip content. So we won't keep this here forever, but I just want to show you what clip content does. So we will be turning that on when we have the instance down where it needs to be, so that way when we have these images kind of sliding in, we only see them once they've entered this bounding box here. Okay, so that's important to know. So then what we're going to do is create each state of this. Okay, so I'm going to add a property, add a variant, click the plus button. And now I'm going to, just so we can see it for now, even though that won't be visible all the time, we do want to be able to see it right now. So, okay, so this one will be, we'll call it state, we'll just call it number 1. This will be number 2. And we'll go from there. Okay, so first let's tackle this one. So we want for this image to slide in this way, but we kind of need for all of these to move over, right? So, okay, let's think how we're going to do this. I think what we need to do is actually turn off auto layout on this main, like on the largest level. We want auto layout on for these, and we want it on for these, but we don't really want auto layout holding these two together because we want for this to be able to slide on top of it. So let's see if that works. I'm gonna select this and I'm going to turn off auto layout. That way, let's see if we can drag these over. Yes, we can. Okay, so that's exactly what we want to do. So now I'm going to do that here too. I'm just going to turn off auto layout. Okay, so then for this state, we just want to drag this over until these two are in line with each other. Yeah, so they're perfectly aligned. Okay, cool. And then in this state, we also want for this one to be selected. So we're going to give this 100% opacity. We're going to give this one 50% opacity. Get rid of the stroke. Give this one the stroke. So now let's just do that twice more. So I'm going to take this and duplicate it, double click so that we're selected on these, and we want to make sure we're staying within the frame. So these aren't quite lined up. There we go. Now they're lined up. Okay, now same thing here. We want to switch this one to 100% with a stroke and get rid of the stroke on this one, making it 50%. So now another thing I'm noticing is that on this state, it's not really possible to go back another time. So we want to make this look disabled, like a disabled state. So I am just going to give it a 50% opacity. I'm going to do the same thing down here with this one because we don't have like a next. We only have a previous in this state. So 50%. Okay, cool. So now that we have all these states, then we can do clip content for all these. This way our components are just a bit more compact. Now, we haven't dealt with this guy yet, so let's just get rid of him. Get rid of this because that was not a, that's not actually the component, an instance of the component. It was just the elements we used to create the component. So then let's drag an instance in here. Okay, so now we have this instance in here and I am just going to drag this right on top of it. So I'm not actually putting it inside the component or anything. It's just going to sit on top. And so that way it won't actually move with these images. We want it to just stay kind of on top like a badge or a sticker that's on top. So just going to give it 24 pixels of padding on each side there. Okay, and so now that we have this in here, we can actually prototype it. So I'm going to head into prototype mode. And so there's several ways that we want to prototype this. We want to prototype the click of these. And we also want to prototype if someone clicks on the arrows. We're actually going to prototype this on the component level because, like I said, if we're ever going to use an instance more than once throughout a project, you should always make the changes on the component level so you only have to design this once. And the other reason is we can actually see all of our components laid out here versus on this page, we can only see one at a time. So it's going to be a bit trickier to animate. So what we want to do is sort of animate between the states here. So for example, if we're just looking at this first state, we want for if someone clicks on this, we want it to animate to this state number 2. And we want to do smart animate. Instead of instant, which will be the default, we want it to smart animate. And I'll show you what it looks like when we do that. But for now, I just want to wire this up. So if they click on the third frame, we want it to animate to the third state and the fourth state. So now let's go down here and see what that actually looks like. I want to show you what Smart Animate does for us. So play the prototype. Okay, so clicking on this one and see how it actually animated the difference between the position of each element within the frame. And Smart Animate is able to do that because on each of our components, the layers are named the same. So Figma understands like, oh, on state number 1, the same element appears here, but on state number 2, that same element is over here. So if we're animating the difference, then you're going to be able to see kind of like the middle point between the beginning and the end, if that makes any sense. So basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's smart animating. It knows exactly how you would want this to animate based on the position of elements. Okay, so that is the basics here. We really just need to kind of prototype everything now. So once we're on this state, then we need for these buttons to work as well. And maybe this button takes us to this state, so all these buttons need to work as well. So we do need to animate each and every one of these buttons that you might click on. So we did all of these. We'll save the arrows for afterwards. So now if someone clicks on this, we want it to animate to this state. So notice how we're doing change to. Instead of navigate to, it's change to because you're changing to a different state. So I'll show you another way to do this. If we click on this and do add an interaction, on click, change to, I think state number 3 is what we want. Yeah, state number 3, smart animate 300 milliseconds. Okay, perfect. But I just find it to be quicker to drag. Okay, great. And it will kind of remember your settings. And so this becomes pretty quick. So let's preview that before we move on to the arrows. I'm going to just come back to here and see how I don't even have to go in order. I can kind of go back and forth. And that feels really natural. I think that's good. Now we just need to do the arrows. So for this one, this next arrow should take us to number 2. This back arrow should take us to number 1. The next arrow should take us to number 3. And I'm just repeating that for all of these. Okay, great. Go back to the prototype. And now we can go next, next, next. Or back. We can go from the first to the last, to the second, back to the first. All of this works exactly how you would expect it to behave on the site. Okay, so on to the next thing. I would expect that whenever I hover over one of the product images, no matter where it is, whether it's on this page or the product listing page or the home page, I would think that anytime I hover over one of these, there should be a bit of a change. We need a hover state to show that it's actually clickable. When you click on it, you're going to go be taken to this product details page. So let's create a simple hover state for these. And again, we're going to do this on the component level. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is hit the plus button here. And I'm actually going to bring this below so that it's easier to see. And we actually need a whole new variant for this. So I'm going to hit the plus button next to property. We're going to hit variant, and this is going to be called state. Okay, so this is the default state. This is going to be the hover state. And the type is still default. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to copy these as well because these both need hover states also. So this is on state hover, or on sale hover, excuse me, and this is out of stock hover. Okay, perfect. So now on the hover state, what do we want it to do exactly. I think what I want is for the image to just get a little bit darker. So we're going to add a fill. So already that kind of did almost what we want it to do, but I think I want to make the fill like a little bit warmer. So instead of this black, I'm going to go into something like dark brown, and that feels kind of good. So I'm just going to copy that, and we're at 20%. Okay, so we're going to add a fill, this color, 20%. This image, we're going to add a fill, 20%. Now, let's see what that kind of feels like. Like I said, it's a lot of trial and error because these things need to feel natural and intuitive, and you're really not going to know if they do until you test them out. So let's wire this up before we test it out. So we're going back into prototype mode. We're going to click on this here and drag to the hover state. So on hover, or while hovering, we want it to change to hover state. I'm not sure if we need any easing. I guess we'll see how that feels. Okay, and we're just going to do the same exact thing here on hover and here while hovering. Okay, this is looking good as we're testing this out. I really like how subtle it is, but you can definitely tell that something is changing, and so it just feels interactive. It feels like I want to click on it. So that's great. Now, next on this page, what I want is to make this add to cart button feel more interactive. So we want to give it a hover state, but then we also want something to happen with this cart up here whenever you click on add to cart. We don't want you to just click on it and then users are confused if something added to their cart or not. So let's start with the hover. I'm going to change this on the component level. So going back into design mode, I'm just going to give us a whole other state here. So we'll make the state hover. So we have type large, state default, and hover. And for this, I'm just going to make the color just a tad bit lighter. So I'm going to detach that style here and just drag up on the color wheel just to make it ever so slightly lighter. It doesn't need to be crazy. And then maybe we want the button to like grow a little bit width-wise. So I'm just going to select on this, and we're going to change the padding from 20 to, let's try 24, or even I think 22. I want it to be really, really subtle. Okay, so that's good. Now let's go into prototype mode, and we just want to do the same thing. While hovering, change to type hover, and yeah, we definitely want smart animate. So that should be good. Now let's go back here and check out what this is looking like. Yeah, I think that's really nice. Like I said, very subtle, but it just feels like natural and interactive. So I like that. Now, next thing we want for when you click on this, we need something to happen. So I think the easiest way to do this is just to add a whole other screen. So we'll call this product details page cart added. Okay, so then when we click on this button, we want something to happen with this cart icon. So I'm actually going to detach this component here, and we're going to add like a number next to this. So I'm just going to add this. We're going to, let's see, frame these together, turn on auto layout, get rid of that space, and then we just want to have like the number 1 in here. Okay, cool. Not bad. Though this, I feel like needs to be lighter. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so that's good. So we have like this second state, but we don't really have any like animation or anything like nice happening, right? So I think we actually want to have like a middle state here, if that makes any sense. So we want something to draw our attention from this add to cart button up to the cart. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to call this product details page cart transition. And I think what I want to do is to have just like a little circle almost that is the same color as the button, so our off black, and it can be small. And on this page, it'll be kind of like hidden behind here, so maybe we can have it like there, but we'll put the opacity all the way down to 0. And then on this page, we need to copy and paste it into the same exact place. So it's actually easier. I'm going to redo this. It's always easier if you just duplicate, because then the layer is named the same and it's in the same place. So now we'll call this cart transition. And we're going to have this little dot on this page. We want to kind of have it move up to here and go to 100%. And then maybe like grow a little bit and go, maybe it should be behind this. So we'll bring this to the front. So it's going to go up there, and then once we have it added to the cart, what should it look like in the end? Added to cart. So this thing should maybe like get smaller even up here. Yeah, and kind of turn into that number. So, okay, let's add just the number here, and let's make this kind of small. I feel like it needs more space there. Yeah, I think that's fine actually. Okay, and so this dot, once it gets up there, yeah, I think we just want it to, here, I'm going to repaste it. I think we just want it to shrink until it just sort of like blends in with this. Okay, it's a work in progress. Okay, so we need to see how this looks now. So let's go into prototype mode, add to cart. So when we click on add to cart, we want to navigate to this next page using Smart Animate, because we don't want anything else to change except for those elements. Let's see, ease out 300 milliseconds. I don't know about ease. Let's do ease in and out, and let's make it a little bit longer. 1200 milliseconds. Again, this really is a work in progress, so we're going to see how this looks. And then from this page to this page, instead of on click, we're going to do after a delay. It's basically after a delay of 0, but the least milliseconds you can do is 1. So we're going to do 1 millisecond in like 300 milliseconds, Smart Animate, so that dot's going to grow and we're going to see this number appear. Okay, so I guess what we need to do is when we have something appear, we want it to also be on the previous page, but just at a 0% opacity, and maybe even like behind that dot. So then it'll like move out, if that makes sense. So let's just see. Again, very much a work in progress. So after a delay, let's just make sure we have this. Yeah, this should be okay. So then we're going to go into the product details page. We're going to preview what this looks like. So we can hover, and then when we click, see how that kind of like went up there. Let's do it. Oh, we can't do it again. Okay. I think I liked it, but I feel like it was too slow. Like I want it to be even more subtle. So for this transition, instead of 1200, let's cut it in half. Let's do 600. And instead of ease in and out, maybe just ease in. See what that looks like. Okay, so add to cart. We're going to click. Yeah, that's not too bad. That's really not too bad. I wonder if the circle here needs to be a bit smaller because it grows like kind of big and I feel like that's not necessary. So let's try that instead. Okay. Oops, we need to like start over here. Okay. Maybe I just don't like the trajectory of it. You know what I mean? Like it just goes like in a straight line versus, I don't know. So let's see what we can do here. Maybe we can do some sort of like bounce. So let's see, smart animate, ease in. Let's do bouncy. Yeah, that's, oh my gosh, that's really bad. That could be fun for something, but that's definitely not what we want. Okay, let's go back to ease in. Maybe we need to just make it even quicker. Let's try 200. Okay. That's too fast. That is too fast. Oh, before we had 600. So let's try 450 milliseconds. Okay. Yeah, I like that. If you wanted to get really, really granular with it, you could add another screen where the dot like comes down. So first it goes down and then up instead of just like straight up, if that makes sense. So we could play around with that, but I think for now this is good. Of course, this is your own project, so I encourage you to play around and you could do an even crazier transition just for practice. But ultimately, when you're working on a real site, especially something like an e-commerce site, it's all about the sort of simplicity and intuitiveness of it. So it should feel natural and not too like jarring or disruptive. But that said, we have 2 more pages to design before we really finish up this prototype and have a finished and prototyped website for Fernies. So in the next lesson, we're going to use all the skills that we've learned so far in order to design the cart and the checkout flow.